My new copy of Harper's arrived today, and I'm holding it in my hand. It is the August issue of Harper's. And on Harper's Index here, percentage of their personal income Americans paid in taxes last year. Now, when I saw this afternoon, I'm flipping through. I always go to Harper's Index first and then scan the contents page. But this caught my eye because all I have been hearing, especially here in the buckle of the Bible Belt down here in Georgia, where all these right-wingers are trying to outright wing each other, and I mentioned this the other night, no matter who the candidate is, the opponent, the right-wing opponent, links him to Obama. The Republican. No, I'm not talking about, this is not a general election. I'm talking about these runoffs and primaries. And it's just so bizarre. It is so vomitous. It is so disgusting to watch these white men and white women, mostly white men, seeing who can out socialist Obama in their campaign. It's pretty incredible stuff. And one of the things these crazy candidates are talking about is Obama's taxes. Oh, he's raised taxes. The truth is he's lowered the taxes on 95% of Americans. But or got legislation passed that did that. He didn't do anything. He got the legislation passed. But what is amazing to me is the continuing lies from these filthy bastards. It just never stops. Every time, it's an old joke. It's not a joke. How can you tell when a Republican's lying if his mouth is moving? But I don't see why people keep buying into this nonsense. It is simply not true. The other thing that these right-wingers are trying to convince the voters is that the tax rates in this country are too high. Oh, that's why we're in this, Obama raised the taxes and the economy collapsed. It's all his fault. Well, Harper's Index has it here, and this comes from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. The percentage of their personal income Americans paid in taxes last year, 17%. The last year in which Americans paid so little, 1971. And then this, the percentage of all U.S. personal income last year that came from wages and government programs, respectively. Now, this they're making the point here. You hear these right-wing lying scum, whether they're in campaign mode or they've been elected and they're just lying to the American public. You hear them all the time talk about, well, all this government money, these government programs, why don't you go get a job? The number of the percentage of all U.S. personal income last year that came from wages and government programs, respectively, 52-17. 52% of all U.S. personal income last year came from wages. 17% came from government programs. And then the last one. In trying to explain those two figures, 52 and 17, the number of years since record-keeping began in 1929 that these figures have been so low and so high, respectively. 0. Which means the records have been kept since 1929, and never has the percentage of earned income versus government programs been so wide. I mean, the difference in the two numbers been so have been so wide, separate. What the hell's the word I'm looking for? So every time you hear one of these right-wing pieces of human waste talking about the taxes are too high, please. I mean, if you want to believe that, well, okay. But because if you're a right-winger, you'll believe anything these rat bastards feed you. But for normal people, if you're not a Republican, if you're a normal person, you're not going to believe that garbage.
Now, an amazing statistic. In a recent poll, almost 90% of teabaggers said that they thought taxes had either gone up or stayed the same under Obama. Only 2% thought they went down. But the reality is, taxes have gone down. For 95% of working families, taxes went down. Think about that. Only 2% of the people in a movement about taxes named after a tax revolt have the slightest idea what's going on with taxes. So it would be easy to just mock, except that those who fall under the control of cults aren't necessarily weirdos, they're victims. And we shouldn't forget that these people are our relatives, our neighbors, and the folks at the next table in the restaurant, especially if that restaurant is Hooters and it's Dollar Wing Wednesday. All right. But if you look at any cult, whether it be the Hale-Bopp Comet people, the Scientologists, or Oprah's book club, you'll find several common elements, the primary one being cult members are taught to quickly withdraw into the group and distrust the outside world. Teabaggers distrust everything. They think everyone's coming for their guns and they shouldn't pay taxes. They're like Wesley Snipes crossed with a fat old white guy who runs a landfill. Folks, no one is coming for your guns, your Bibles, or your fishing poles. And that's not a monster under your bed. It's the ab lounger you bought last year and never used. Cults are also always driven by some ridiculous, unattainable goal, like a fiery apocalypse ringing in paradise, or deficit reduction by way of giant tax cuts. Now, you know someone has fallen into a cult if you see these signs. 1, cults have their own vocabulary. Now, I don't speak shit kicker, but I know that in their world, freedom means guns, diplomacy means weakness, elitist means reader, and socialist means black. 2, cults tend to populate from within, encouraging members to have huge broods of children and to give them strange names like Moonbeam and Trig. And 3, cult members always attribute all their problems to one simple explanation.